Some people say revenge is best served cold. I discovered it's best served with a mop and bucket. My name is Michael Chen, and until last month, I was the Chief Innovation Officer at Chen Global Solutions, a software development company my father built from nothing. Now I'm the night janitor. At least that's what my Uncle Robert thinks. The day everything fell apart started like any other Monday at our Singapore headquarters. I was presenting my latest project to the board, a revolutionary AI system that could transform how multinational corporations handle supply chain management. The preliminary tests show a 40% improvement in efficiency, I explained, pointing to the graphs on the screen. We're looking at potential revenue of $50 million in the first year alone. Uncle Robert, who'd taken over as CEO after my father's stroke last year, scrolled through his phone with obvious boredom. Fascinating, he drawled. But I think we'll pass. I stopped mid-sentence. Pass? This could revolutionize our entire industry. It could, he agreed, finally looking up. If it worked. But your track record lately hasn't inspired much confidence. That was a lie, and everyone knew it. My innovations had doubled company revenue in 3 years. But the board members, all Uncle Robert's old friends, nodded along like puppets. The Jean contract, he continued, was sabotaged. I cut in. Someone altered the code right before deployment. If he'd let me investigate. Enough. Uncle Robert stood, his expensive suit rippling with barely contained anger. Your paranoid accusations are embarrassing this company. First the Jean contract, then the Singapore government bid, now this fantasy AI project. It's time for a change. He picked up a folder from the table and tossed it at me. Inside was a transfer notice, from Chief Innovation Officer to Night Maintenance Staff. You want to make me a janitor? I couldn't believe what I was reading. Consider it a learning opportunity, he smirked. Clean the office instead of running it. Maybe some manual labor will teach you humility. The board members didn't even try to hide their amusement. These men who'd watched me grow up, who'd celebrated my graduation from MIT, who'd applauded my early successes, now they sat there grinning as my uncle stripped away everything I built. I should have been angry, should have shouted, threatened legal action, stormed out. Instead, I felt an odd sense of calm. Because in that moment, everything finally made sense. The mysterious code changes, the lost contracts, the accidental deletion of my research files. It hadn't been bad luck. It had been sabotage. And now I knew who was behind it. When do I start? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Uncle Robert blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. Tonight, Wang will show you the cleaning supplies. He laughed. Don't forget to empty my trash. I gathered my papers quietly, ignoring the snickers from the board members. As I reached the door, Uncle Robert called out, "Oh, and Michael? The Yamamoto meeting is tomorrow morning. Make sure my office is spotless. Wouldn't want our $50 million potential client to see any dirt." I turned back slowly. The Yamamoto group? They're coming here? Not that it's any of your concern anymore, but yes. Mr. Yamamoto himself is flying in to discuss implementing their new global supply chain system. His smile was pure poison. The very project you failed to deliver. I nodded and left without another word. They probably thought I was broken, defeated. They had no idea what they'd just done. You see, being CIO wasn't my only role at Chen Global. I've been learning the business from the ground up since I was a teenager. I knew every system, every protocol, every security weakness. And more importantly, I knew where my uncle had buried his digital skeletons. That night, after the regular cleaning staff left, I sat in my old office, now stripped of personal belongings, and powered up my laptop. The janitor's ID badge my uncle had so gleefully handed me turned out to be a master key to the entire building, including the server rooms. Time to do some cleaning, I muttered, cracking my knuckles. For 6 hours, I dug through server logs, security footage, and email archives. I found exactly what I expected: systematic sabotage of my projects, backdoor changes to my code, deliberate interference with my contracts, all traced back to one IP address. Uncle Robert's private terminal. But that wasn't all I found. Hidden in an encrypted folder was a complete record of my uncle's secret negotiations with the Yamamoto Group. He wasn't planning to implement their supply chain system. He was planning to sell them a stolen version of my AI project, modified just enough to hide its origins. The same project he'd rejected that morning. The same project that could revolutionize global supply chain management. The same project he'd been secretly copying for months while systematically destroying my reputation. I downloaded everything to a secure drive, then carefully erased my digital tracks. Uncle Robert thought he was clever with computers. He had no idea what a real tech expert could do. Dawn was breaking as I finished my janitorial duties. I cleaned the offices, all right, just not in the way Uncle Robert expected. At 8:45 a.m., I changed into the spare suit I kept in my gym locker and made my way to the lobby. Through the glass doors, I could see an expensive car pulling up. Mr. Yamamoto had arrived. I straightened my tie and thought about Uncle Robert, probably rehearsing his presentation upstairs. He thought he'd sideline me, thought he'd neutralize the threat to his plans. He thought wrong. I'd spent the night gathering digital dirt, and now it was time to do some cleaning that would shake Chin Global Solutions to its foundations. "Good morning, Mr. Yamamoto," I said in perfect Japanese as the elderly businessman entered. "I'm Michael Chen. We have a lot to discuss of supply chain innovation and corporate integrity." Uncle Robert had no idea that I'd met Mr. Yamamoto at a tech conference last year. No idea that we'd stayed in touch, discussing industry trends and innovation. No idea that I spoke Japanese. No idea that his perfect plan was about to explode in his face. The security camera caught his expression when he stepped out of the elevator and saw me sitting with Mr. Yamamoto in the conference room. It was a picture worth framing, right next to the doctored maintenance badge he'd given me. Sometimes the best way to clean house is to let people think you're just there to empty the trash. Uncle Robert was about to learn that some messes can't be swept under the rug. Impossible. Uncle Robert's face had turned an interesting shade of purple as he burst into the conference room. "Michael, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be, that is, you're not authorized to clean?" I smiled, switching to English. "Don't worry, Uncle. I did exactly what you asked. I spent all night cleaning the servers, the email archives, the security logs. Very illuminating work." Mr. Yamamoto watched this exchange with keen interest, his expression carefully neutral. Beside him, his chief technology officer was already reviewing the documents I provided. "Mr. Yamamoto." Uncle Robert tried to recover, straightening his tie. "I apologize for this interruption. My nephew is no longer involved in company operations." "On the contrary," Mr. Yamamoto replied in perfect English. "Michael-san and I were just discussing some fascinating innovations in supply chain management. Perhaps you could explain why the system you offered us bears such a remarkable resemblance to his original work." The blood drained from Uncle Robert's face. On the conference room screen, I pulled up side-by-side comparisons. My original AI code and the new system Uncle Robert had planned to sell to Yamamoto Group. "As you can see," I continued, "the core architecture is identical. Only the interface has been modified, rather clumsily, I might add. The timestamps on the original code predate any of your negotiations by months." "This is absurd," Uncle Robert sputtered. "You were fired." "Demoted," I corrected, "to Janitor, which gave me access to every floor, every office, and every server room in the building. Did you really think I wouldn't find the evidence of your sabotage?" The CTO looked up from his tablet. "This code, it's brilliant. The neural network adaptation protocols alone are years ahead of anything else in the market. That's why my uncle wanted to steal it," I said quietly, "after systematically sabotaging my other projects to undermine my credibility." Mr. Yamamoto's eyes narrowed. "Is this true, Robert-san?" Before Uncle Robert could respond, the conference room door opened again. My father, Thomas Chen, rolled in his wheelchair, accompanied by his nurse and our company's head of legal. "Dad?" Uncle Robert's voice cracked. "You're supposed to be resting." "I've rested enough," my father said, his voice still strong despite his weakened condition. "Long enough to watch you try to destroy everything I built." He turned to Mr. Yamamoto and bowed as much as his wheelchair allowed. "Yamamoto-san, I apologize for my brother's actions. It seems I placed my trust unwisely." "No apology needed, old friend," Mr. Yamamoto replied warmly. "Your son has already demonstrated that Chen Global's integrity remains intact, at least in the next generation." The head of legal stepped forward, placing a thick folder on the table. "The board has been called for an emergency session. Given the evidence of corporate espionage and intellectual property theft, they'll be voting on immediate leadership changes. You can't do this, Uncle Robert protested. I'm CEO. Actually, my father said, you're suspended, effective immediately. The stroke may have weakened my body, Robert, but my mind is clear enough to recognize betrayal. Security arrived to escort Uncle Robert out. As he passed me, he hissed, you planned this all along. No, I replied, you did. The moment you decided that stealing my work was easier than acknowledging its value. I just cleaned up your mess. After you was gone, Mr. Yamamoto turned to me. Your AI system, the real one. How soon could it be implemented? The core architecture is ready. With proper support, we could have it running within 3 months. He nodded. Instead of $50 million, I propose a $100 million initial investment with option for global implementation, provided, he glanced at my father, the right person is in charge of development. My father smiled. I believe we need a new CEO. Someone who understands both innovation and integrity. He reached for my hand. What do you say, son? 6 months later, I stood in my new office, the CEO's office, looking out over the Singapore skyline. Chen Global's stock had doubled since the announcement of our partnership with Yamamoto Group. The AI system was revolutionizing supply chain management across 3 continents. Uncle Robert had tried to fight back, of course. But the evidence was overwhelming. Last I heard, he was trying to start a consulting firm in Malaysia. Not many clients were interested in consulting with a proven corporate thief. The board members who had laughed at my demotion had all resigned, replaced by tech industry veterans who understood the value of innovation. My father, while still partially paralyzed, had regained enough strength to serve as chairman emeritus, providing wisdom and guidance as we expanded into new markets. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. The night janitor, a real one this time, smiled as he entered. Evening, Mr. Chen. Just here to clean up. Thanks, Eddie, and please call me Michael. I helped him move some papers so he could dust my desk. How's your daughter doing with those programming classes? His face lit up. One of my first acts as CEO had been to establish an education fund for employees and their families. Eddie's daughter had a natural talent for coding. Top of her class. She's already talking about internships. Tell her to come see me when she's ready. We're always looking for fresh talent. After he left, I picked up a framed photo from my desk. Me at age 10, sitting on my father's lap at his old desk, playing CEO. He'd always said leadership wasn't about power, it was about responsibility, about lifting others up instead of pushing them down. My phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Yamamoto. Their European division wanted to implement our AI system. Another $100 million contract waiting to be signed. Not bad for a janitor. I kept the maintenance badge Uncle Robert had given me. It sits in a frame on my wall, next to my MIT diploma and CDO appointment letter. A reminder that sometimes the best view of a company's true character comes from the ground up. The next morning, I held my first company-wide innovation summit. Every employee, from senior developers to maintenance staff, was invited to share ideas for improvement. Real innovation, I've learned, can come from anywhere. And every evening when I leave the office, I make a point to thank our cleaning staff. Because now I know exactly how much power lies in having a clear view of what others try to hide. They say success is the best revenge, but I've learned that true success isn't about getting even. It's about getting it right. About building something so strong, so honest, that no amount of sabotage can bring it down. Uncle Robert tried to make me feel small by making me a janitor. Instead, he gave me the tools to clean up our company and restore its integrity. Sometimes the best way to lead isn't from the top down, but from the ground up. And sometimes the person with the mop knows more about keeping things clean than the person behind the desk. As for me, I still keep a spare suit in my office. You never know when you might need to roll up your sleeves and do some cleaning.